Hello and welcome to the Oddschecker podcast. This is the Cheltenham Festival Ante-Post preview, and I'm your host, George Elek, and today I'm joined by two expert guests. First, maybe foremost, Oddschecker's very own tipster, Andy Holding. Andy, great to have you here, a man that loves the Cheltenham Festival more than most.
Yeah, I've been going since I was out of nappies, really. I think my dad used to take me when I was sort of 4 or 5. I was in and around the area of when Night Nurse, Bird's Nest, Sea Pigeon were there, Pollardstown, all the great champion hurdlers. The very first Gold Cup I saw was Forgive and Forget. And the only one I've missed, amazingly, was Desert Orchids Gold Cup when he won in the mud and he beat Yahoo. I was actually working in a betting shop that day, amazing, and I couldn't get time off. Of all the ones to miss, it was probably the greatest Gold Cup we've ever seen in living memory. But I've been there all through all the rest. I've been every day since. So yeah, it's a place dear to my heart. Some great memories there. Some of my best memories in my life have been there. So yeah, we'll talk about those along the way. But yeah, it's just a fantastic meeting, and it's the one place that I think all race goers go every year where the blood really does get pumping.
Yeah, absolutely, and fingers crossed we'll be there together again come March. Ed Quigley also joins us today as well, racing broadcaster and journalist. And Ed, you love Cheltenham so much that you just moved there.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it, isn't it? Yeah, I grew up not far from here. In fairness, lived in and around London for a couple of decades or so, and now we've come back full circle, and I'm just around the corner from the racecourse now. But yeah, absolutely, it's as Andy says, it's a magical place. You'd never be able to change that. It's as Mick Fitz says, it's where we aspire to have your one winner. If you can get your one winner there, it feels like 100 winners for what it's worth. And it's brilliant. And obviously we're 3 months away, but nonetheless that doesn't stop us talking about it.
Well, yeah, on the Oddschecker site, I can see there is a countdown to Cheltenham, 83 days and 0 hours, 3 minutes and 19 seconds.
Love it.
Yeah, love that. Yeah,
3 minutes and 15 seconds away and 83 days away from the Supreme. And, as we say, fingers crossed there'll be at least a few people there to see it. Before we get on to the previews, and just to let the listeners and viewers know, we're going to be going through this not day by day, but kind of we've packaged up the races we're going to preview. So we're going to start with the Novice Hurdles, then move on to the Mares and the Triumphs. So stick to the smaller obstacles, then on to the Arkle, the RSA, the Marsh and the Ryanair, then into the 4 big races of the week, one each day: the Champion Hurdle, the Champion Chase, the Stayers, and then the Gold Cup. So we've got a jam-packed show for you. We're going to try and get through it in about an hour or so. So we're going to have to rattle through them. So it may not be in detail for every single race, but the guys will certainly fill you in on who they're looking at this early stage. Before we get into that, we'll have to be quick. But we've all mentioned how how much we love the festival, and we've all got those stories of the winners we've backed and the heartbreaking losers as well. I backed Duvan back in November before the Supreme, and it wasn't even to win that much, but the 6 months or 4 months of stress before the race was absolutely unbelievable, and watching the way he won was very special. Similarly, Goshen, my nap last year, I don't think I'll ever forget that heartbreak. But Ed, you first, what's your kind of your favourite and maybe the Cheltenham memory that you'd like to forget?
Oh, God, it's been a few, hasn't there? I don't know.
Good and bad.
Yeah, one bad way, one that just sticks in my mind was I was on Mellon at all sorts of prices for the Champion Hurdle a couple of seasons ago, and jumping the last, I thought, I mean, my heart rate, I'd love to see the old Fitbit monitor at that point, because I thought we got this in the bag, and then living Barry Geraghty, happily retired now, and Bouvardere come back and nab him back on the line. I was like, oh no. You get moments like that, and it happens. And I suppose the one that people won't let me forget was after Cole Harden won the 2015, what is now Stayers Hurdle. Of course, that was one of my big Ante-Post tips and fancies, 100 to 1 or whatever. And of course, in the aftermath, I kind of lost the plot a little bit in the in the winners' enclosure, etc. And there's myself and Warren having a big piggyback around the prey ring, which the racing TV cameras obviously got hold of a lot of, and used a lot of their promos to embarrass me and stuff. But it happens. You've got to enjoy the good times, because there, from a punting perspective, there are plenty of times where you walk out there and just want to hold your head in your hands. But it's nonetheless, it's to say a 3-1 winner at Cheltenham is the same as a 3-1 winner at Fakenham, yet it feels like it means 100 times more to you, and especially exactly the same when they lose. But yeah, you just cannot beat it.
Absolutely, and I think I'd take the embarrassment of being filmed piggybacking a 100-to-1 winner around the parade ring for the 100-to-1 winner. So I'm not giving you any sympathy for that one, Ed. Andy, how about you? What the highs and the lows?
Well, my two highs and lows are pre-oddschecker, really. So you'd have to trust me on these two. Talking of champion hurdles and great champion hurdles, my fondest memory of a horse I backed almost a year in advance was Rooster Booster when he won his champion hurdle. You can always tell in the Holding household the ones that are dear to his heart when he's actually got a photo of them. I think when you actually go out of your way to get a picture of them, a painting, or some kind of emotional attachment to them, that then they mean quite a bit to you from a financial perspective. And Rooster Booster, I backed him when he won, or after he won the county hurdle, because I was so impressed with the way he went through the race. I think it was in the era where the champion hurdle was a little bit quiet. I think it was after Istabrack, and we hadn't really got any absolute champion superstars. And I thought if there's one horse coming through, it might well be Rooster Booster. So I backed him at 33 to 1. I only had the one bet. I didn't sort of keep loading up on it like a lot of people do. I think I had something like 100 quid each way, something in and around that region. But I had that sort of Ante-Post voucher in my sort of my office drawer all the way through the winter. And obviously he kept doing really well. He won the international. He worked his way through into the position where I think he was second favourite on the day. But I mean, the feeling of watching Rooster Booster, having backed him at 33 to 1, coming there on the bridle 2 out, he literally only got to just stand on his feet to win, and then he absolutely charged up the run. And I think Simon Holt said, and there's Rooster Booster turbocharged as he jumped to the last. And he was off and away, and that was a great feeling. So that's probably one of my fondest memories of just following a particular horse through a season and having a nice price about him. But the worst one was Grand Cru. I latched onto him when he won at I think he won at Cheltenham in a handicap for his first start for the Pike team, and then he went to Haydock and he won that Brush Hurdle final, the one that Main Fact incidentally won very easily the other day. And I think I backed him at 10 or 12 to 1 for the Stayers because of the numbers. I actually got in touch with David Pike, funny enough. I went via his website and actually told him, I said, this horse I think is a Stayers Hurdle horse. And he actually came back to me and gave me his time and sort of said, okay, we'll sort of maybe treat him accordingly. And then they ran him in the Cleve Hurdle. He won his Cleve Hurdle. Unfortunately, he bumped into big bucks on the day, but that was a great thrill to follow him, have a great Ante-Post bet, but unfortunately there was one too good on the day. So those are my two sort of highs and lows. Are very much a positive and a nearly with Grand Cru.
Brilliant stuff. I'm sure there'll be more stories to come at next year's festival, and we're going to try and highlight them now. Maybe this time next year you'll be talking about how you tipped up in 100-to-1 winner on the oddschecker Cheltenham Ante-Post preview, and it went off whatever price and won. Fingers crossed that's where we're going to be. Before we get to the racing, just going to, as ever, point you in the direction of the oddschecker app. Please do download the app now. You'll get the very best prices, which we'll be talking about today, the best bookie offers, the best place terms as well, and plenty of other things, including free bets, which I know people like quite a lot during the Cheltenham Festival, it's fair to say, and bookies are normally pretty obliging, so do look out for those. As I mentioned, we're going to kick off with the Novice Hurdles, and this is an area of expertise for Andy. In the Supreme, Ballyadam for Gordon Elliott is the 8-to-1 favourite ahead of, Fernie Hollow and Ballyadam, the joint 8-to-1 favourites, although Ballyadam is as short as 5-to-1 elsewhere. That 8-to-1 is with Betfair Sportsbook and Paddy Power. I should mention here as well that, of course, all of these prices are not non-run, no bet. So if you have the bet and the horse doesn't run in the race, you sadly lose your money. Do start 16-to-1, Appreciate It 16-to-1, 20-to-1 bar. In the Ballymore, we've got Appreciate It is the 6-to-1 favourite, Fernie Hollow's 14-to-1. Bob Ollinger 16-to-1 alongside Ballyadam and Brave Man's Game. And in the Albert Bartlett, it is, of course, very open indeed. Holy Macapony 16-to-1, Stargate 20-to-1, 25-to-1, Make Good and Fakira, Appreciate It, and many others. And I guess, Andy, the difficulty here, I mean, you will, with your time figures, have a good steer on which horses are more progressive than others at this early stage. But you've got to be careful you pick the right one, because 2.5, 3 miles, it's normally the Supreme and the Ballymore where you're kind of just wondering which one they're going to go to.
Oh, well, this is almost like a mid-season report, isn't it? For want of a better word. We're probably just a little bit shy of getting to see that sort of the next wave coming through, and one or two horses have been impressive. See what they can do on the second or even the third run, because we've got the Leopardstown 4-day meeting, we've got all the Christmas stuff, and then we're on into the new year, and obviously trials out at Cheltenham, etc., etc. But judging everything at face value now, the only way I can judge them really is by sticking obviously figures on them and using that as a guide, and using the evidence of what's happened in previous seasons. For instance, the Supreme Novices Hurdle, the time figure that what we award horses for winning a Supreme Novices Hurdle is something in and around a rating of 75. I think Shishkin got a 77 last year. I think the winner the year before was a 76. It's usually somewhere along the same lines, or slightly below the champion hurdle, which is usually a 78, 79, 80. Virtually most years, a well-run champion hurdle will run to a time figure or an award of around an 80 on our time figures. So judging the novice hurdles in the early part of the season is quite difficult. None of them are really running what you would consider a championship environment, so they haven't been able to run to that kind of level yet. But what you can gauge is whether they have shown a reasonable level based on their numbers. And there are a handful who've run in sort of mid-60 times. Ballyadam actually hasn't run a number yet of any great distinction. The first of his races at Down Royal, they actually crawled for the first two hurdles, and then they quickened as they went past the stands, and then they sort of got into their stride, and he was really good from that point onwards. But the Royal Bond with regards form, I'm sure Ed will back this up as well. I'm sure he's done the data as well on the day. But the races that was won by Ballyadam and Honeysuckle were an absolute joke. They've just gone no gallop in either of the two races, and basically the best horses won because they've just been the best horse, and they've shown their class from 2 out, 3 out, and they've won because they're the best. But with regards numbers and being in an environment which they're likely to encounter later on in the season against the better horses, they're impossible to get excited about. I do like Ballyadam. I think he's a quality horse, but what he's done so far, I'd be reluctant to put him up at 12 at 8 to 1. His top figures are 55. We've only seen Ferdy Hollow once. He ran to a 58 when he won at Gowran, doing it quite nicely without hitting the ball out the park. The one who's clocked a really big number, and I know she's good enough for Cheltenham or even now, and that's She Wears It Well. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to see her in the Royal Bond. I think we did a preview early on in the season before she was due to run at Fairy House. I think they withdrew because of the ground. They didn't really want to run her on soft or heavy ground at this time of the season. But she's run to a 71, which is the highest rating we've awarded for a novice either side of the RSC so far to date. And the other one I'll throw into the equation as well, and when we're talking about value and what might turn out to be a decent price in a few months' time, is a horse called Boot Hill, one of Harry Fry's. Now, this horse ran to a big number when he won a bumper last year at Kempton, so straight away I was alerted this horse being able to run at a very, very fast time. He ran a 71 at Kempton when he beat that nice horse of Nicky Henderson's. He ran to a 63 on debut the other day at Taunton. I was told that he wasn't 100% fit either. They were definitely going to. That was just a run to blow away the cobwebs. But he ran a much significantly time quicker than the first division of that 2-mile maiden hurdle, and I thought he did it rather easily. He jumped fantastic. He travelled great, and he's 33 to 1 currently. I'd imagine that Connections will maybe look to running right-handed again, or maybe even try him at Cheltenham sooner rather than later. But he's a horse that I think could be under the radar and something that UK punters need to have a look at. But the pecking order is very much Ballyadams, your Ferny Hollows, your She Wears It Wells, the ones who the sexy names for the big Irish stables. And we'll get to learn a little bit more about them, I think, at Leopardstown over Christmas, because I think there's a good likelihood that at least one or, if not all of them, will run.
Boot Hill 33 to 1 with 888 Sport. She Wears It Well 25 to 1 pretty much across the board. And anybody who was interested to learn more about Andy's thoughts on She Wears It Well and a couple of other novice hurdlers, go back and find our Horses to Follow podcast we did a couple of weeks ago, because you touch on a fair few of them there. Ed, your nickname in the industry is Longer Shot Ted. Some people would say that's a brave man's game, wouldn't they?
See what you did there. Well, Luke Harvey actually calls me Wide Shot Ted after in fact, I used to get stuck into the Bacon Butty fan outside the old at the races offices. But yeah, indeed. Just very quickly on She Wears It Well, I actually believe she's had a little setback from what I last saw. Ruby Walsh was interviewed on telly, said he thinks it's just a case of will miss Christmas as opposed to anything significant, and will be back in January. But yeah, I come through a slightly different angle to Andy in regards to the waters are very muddy these days, isn't it? I mean, you've only got to look at these anti-post lists, and trying to find out, get the horses to the right races to begin with is a hard enough plot from putting your anti-post cap on. I mean, not only have you got Ballyadam and Fernie Hollow, two of the protagonists, they're both from the same owners. You're going to get owner politics come into it as well in terms of trying to split them up. And I find it quite funny, actually, because you've got Gordon Elliott going, oh, yeah, Ballyadam's so quick, definitely a 2-miler. And then Patrick Mullins was on his Zoom call the other day saying, oh, Fernie Hollow, definitely a 2-miler, so quick, yeah, definitely be in the Supreme. Well, one of them will end up in the Ballymore and win the Supreme. We have this every year, don't we?
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, touching upon your good little pun there, George.
Thank you.
I'll just come through the prices. Obviously, I tipped Brave Man's Game at 25s for the Ballymore, and coming through the angle of where they're going to run, Paul Nicholls has basically said, look, they're going to go to the Cheltenham Hurdle and then go to the Ballymore. They're going to take the Denman route, he called it. Now, I know this horse does look your old-fashioned chaser. I mean, he looks a proper what was the RSA or what will be the RSA next year. He looks a proper 3-mile chaser in the making. However, he's absolutely wiped the floor with everything in the last couple of races. And last time out, yes, in terms of raw form, actual basis of form, if you like, nothing particularly jumping off the page. But the manner in which he just went through that race at Newbury absolutely pulverised them, didn't have to come off the bridle at all. And I'm just thinking again through price angles in the fact that he's now into 16s. He's going to the Cheltenham Hurdle, which I thought originally was going to probably shape up into quite a strong race with Stargate of Evan Williams penciled in for an Adrimal of Tom Lacey. Well, listening to the quotes, they're not too keen on it with Evan Williams and Stargate. They think the race might come too soon. And Adrimal, they're considering the Tolworth. So all in all, I think the Cheltenham Hurdle could really cut up to a 3-4 runner race like it did a couple of years ago. Well, most years, it's often a 4-5 runner affair. And I think Brave Man's Game is going to take a whole load of beating over the same course of distance he had last time out. Soft ground will be fine. And again, going through the anti-post novice hurdles are an absolute nightmare just to get your horse to the right target. You've not only got that, you've got the choice that some novices are mares as well, as Andy's alluded to. So you've got mares options. And yet, when you've got a trainer, I always, you can take trainers' words too much on face value. But when you've got someone like Paul Nicholls coming up and saying, look, we'll go here and then we'll go to the Ballymore, I don't see where else he's going to really go. I don't see them dropping him down to 2 miles. And the Albert Bartlett wouldn't particularly be a race Paul Nicholls is madly keen on. And I just thought, yeah, the manner in which he did it, just now and again, you see a horse just go through a race, you're like, wow, just the way he did it. Didn't have to twitch a muscle or come off the bridle to win at Newbury last time out. He's back over the same course of distance in 11 days' time. And if he wins the Cheltenham Hurdle, then he's crashed in his single figures. And I think he's going to go off a short price to win the Cheltenham Hurdle. So, yeah, he's in my Ballymore books at the moment, if you like. But I really like Ballyadam. I'd like to see him in the Supreme, actually, because I think the fact, as Andy alludes to, that the races he's been in so far have often just turned into a dash over 2 furlongs shows, despite perhaps his pedigree, he does have a lot of raw speed and good turbo. And so if you've got that eclectic blend of stamina and speed, that all suits you really well in the Supreme Novices, I think. So I really do like Ballyadam of those at the shorter prices for whichever race he does turn up in. But as far as the Ballymore option goes, yeah, Brave Man's Games, he's on side for me at the moment.
Good stuff. Anything on the Albert Bartlett before we move on to the mares and the Joe?
I wouldn't give up on. I think Andy's pretty keen on Holy Macapony, and I will see that horse again soon. But I wouldn't give up on at the prices again on Farouk Delen, who absolutely bolted up at Down Royal 2 runs ago, albeit in a nothing race, but looked a really nice prospect. And then ran an absolute shocker in the Monksfield Grade 3 hurdle last time out, but was fidgety, made all kinds of errors, and was never going a yard. I see subsequently to say the horse is off his feed, etc. And it clearly just wasn't his running. And he was into about 14s for the Albert Bartlett. He's drifted back out around the 33 to 1 mark now. And if you forgive a horse one bad run when he wasn't right, I think he could still be a big player. He reminds me a bit of Fury Road. He's in that kind of mould, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if he got back into the picture, shall we say, at a big price.
Yeah, Farrick to lane 33-1 with a few firms. There was definitely a fair few people with who are happy with their slips backing Farrick to lane before his debut run for the Albert Bartlett, but 33-1 now. Andy, Holy Macapony, just a quick word. You obviously mentioned the horse in our Horses to Follow pod.
Yeah, I think he's the right favourite for the Albert Bartlett at this current moment in time. He's posted a championship time figure already. He clocked a 70 when he won on his hurdling debut. Again, anything that's done as something in and around the 70 mark, straight away I'm like, yeah, that is definitely a Cheltenham horse. I have because my numbers work so well and they have done periodically over time, I just know the level of what horses are capable of. And if they can do that on their first run, they're right up there. So Holy Macapony, without shadow of a doubt, is... he's got the Albert Bartlett sort of rubber stamped already on him. I think Appreciated, again, he's the right favourite for the Ballymore. He looked a Ballymore horse, didn't he? The way he just got outpaced late on by Fernie Hollow in the champion bumper last season. Look, he ran perfectly respectably. He was one of my lays of the meeting, but he actually ran a good deal better than I thought he would. I just didn't think he'd have the pace. And to finish second in what looked a stellar season for bumper horses, and I thought it was a creditable effort. And the horse that he beat on debut at Cork bolted up next time out, back at the same track. So that form line's already taken a bit of a boost. And Willie Mullins, he's got such a fantastic record in the Ballymore. He tends to run his very best in inverted commas horses in that. He looks the right one at the moment, but. Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered most of the only one I would throw into the mix, and I'm not sure which route they're going to go down. I think I might have mentioned him again in my Horses to Follow list. Is Irascible. He was down to running the Royal Bond. He's also down to running that Grade 1 2-mile race at Leopardstown in the next week or two. If Henry de Bromhead runs him in that, that certainly would tell you that where he thinks, because I mean that jumping up from a Clonmel maiden hurdle to running in a Grade 1, that's a big jump for a Henry de Bromhead sort of strategy. And I see that he's not even quoted in any of the lists in the Supreme Novices. I think he's one that UK bookmakers, punters haven't really latched onto yet, and they don't really know how good he is. But look, Henry's put him in 2 Grade 1s after winning a maiden hurdle, so and his number was very good when he won at Clonmel. So I think he's one that we might be hearing quite a bit of. Post-Christmas.
Very interesting stuff. On then to the mares, where Honeysuckle, last year's winner, is the 3-1 favourite. She went off 9-4 for the race last year, beating the odds-on Benny de Dieu, who is now 7-1 this time, with Concertista 5-1 in between the two. Dame de Campagne is 12-1. Roxana, the winner from 2018, is 16-1 with Ellie May. Andy, Honeysuckle at 3 is a bigger price than last year when she was taking on the Mullins hot pot. Yeah,
I mean, Ed's already touched upon, his kind of like thought process and his way of thinking with regards to Ante-Post bets. And I think that's what you have to ask yourself when you are placing a bet so far in advance. Am I going to beat the price significantly enough to justify the risk and reward now? I.e., 25-1, you've identified the race, you think that's the race, you're backing before the trial, he's then at 8-10-1 shot, and he goes further down and he goes off, let's say 5-6. In your head, that's what you're kind of thinking or hoping that you need to achieve with every Ante-Post bet. So when you're looking at horses like Honeysuckle, Concertista, 3-1, 5-1, am I going to beat the book massively significantly, or am I better off waiting for the day, looking at the opposition, and let's say Honeysuckle, if she's there in one piece at 7-4, 2-1. I don't think there's a big enough angle, or there's not enough juice to suggest that Honeysuckle's a great bet at this stage at 3-1, albeit she's the champion in that division, and she was pretty good considering it was a slowly run race in the Hatton's Grace. What I will say is, looking at that Hatton's Grace stroke Fairy House 2-day meeting a few weeks back, it was interesting that Concertista ran the day before on the Saturday, and just comparing like for like time figures and sectionals, obviously it was a different day and the ground might have been slightly different. Arguably it should have been slightly quicker on the day after than it was on the day before, but that could be a little bit misleading, especially if they realign the hurdles and they realign the racing line. But just doing a circuit to circuit time when they went past the winning line to winning line, Concertista was 10 seconds faster than Honeysuckle when she beat Honeysuckle's stable companion Minella Melody, and she did it without coming off the bridle. She was absolutely electric. Her hurdling was unreal. She snapped back on the bridle at every single point in the race, and Townhead literally just had to nudge her out to go and win very easily. If I was to have a few, let's say, tricky, filthy Ante-Post bets now, and I know that George, your ears have picked up when I've said that, because you quite like your gnarly each ways.
I do, yeah.
The other way to look at it is that there are several at this point now. You think, well, there's no way that can be an each way price on the day. If Honeysuckle and Concertista both get to the mares, I think they'll bet 7 or 4, 2 to 1 on the day. I think it'll be an either or. It'll be, a Benedictio Honeysuckle kind of situation again, because I think they're that far ahead of their division that perhaps one of them is worth backing now. And Concertista is definitely the. I think she's 5 to 1. Isn't she top price?
5 to 1, yeah, with Bet365.
Yeah, and she's just got an amazing record at Cheltenham. I think she was second in the Mares Novice the first year, and then won it in the next year. I just think she's just a brilliant mare. And looking at their two comparisons as well, they're very, very fastest times they've run. We've got Concertista running a 72 at Cheltenham, and we've got Honeysuckle's fastest ever time at 73, and that came in that Irish Leopardstown race last year. So there's not a great deal between them either on the pick of when they're at their very best. And I think Concertista's improving at a rapid rate of knots. I think she could overtake Honeysuckle. So my advice to listeners now would be to back Concertista each way at 5 to 1, because I think you'll be on a brilliant bet on the day.
Concertista 5 to 1, the one for Andy. Ed, do you have anything to add to the mares, or should we go on to the Triumph?
I would just slightly disagree, not Andy's thought process, but in terms of I could easily see Concertista in the Champion Hurdle. I see Willie Mullins says Concertista's running next week in the Grey One Matheson Hurdles against Abracadabras and all the others, Saint Moir. She puts in a big performance against the boys there. They're going to have to seriously start thinking about switching ranks. And looking to the Ante-Post list again, that could easily happen with Honeysuckle. They could go the Champion Hurdle route. Roxana, I think I saw Dan Scouted saying the owners aren't keen on Cheltenham. They'll probably swerve it. Benny Didier's nearly 10. See what I'm saying? This race could cut up massively. I think, Concertista is definitely the one to take out of it. But there's a fair chance she can end up in the Champion Hurdle. I don't think it's too far-fetched. If I'm going to throw one in at a bonkers price, just on the basis, I think the race could cut up. Indefatigable of Paul Webber won the Martin Pipe last year.
28 to 1.
She's 28 to 1. And then again, in a race which I see can cut up, I don't really see where else they go with her. She's up to 151 now, which puts her pretty much level with Concertista, 7 pounds behind Honeysuckle. She's kind of up in the higher echelons of the kind of mares hurdles now. She's 28 to 1. She's 28 to 1 because she's trained by Paul Webber and not NJ Henderson or something. To be blunt, it really is, to be blunt. She's got the course of distance form, and they tried her over 3 miles last time out. And to my mind, the old Petrolite came on, so that's kind of ruled out handicaps or a stayers hurdle tilt. So I literally don't see where else they go with her again. She's 28 to 1, and she rocks up on the day. I think she'd be at least half the price in a race which has the propensity to cut up massively with some of these really classy types, like Honeysuckles and Concertistas, who could have their eyes drawn to other targets. But as Andy says, it's a half-time report. There's a lot of imponderables. But yeah, Concertista's definitely, she's really exciting.
And talking about quickly as well with Concertista and a possible Champion Hurdle tilt, you have to also organise in your mind, not necessarily owners. Obviously, they're a massive influence on where certain horses will go if they're trebly represented in an Ante-Post book. Also, obviously, the trainers might have a huge influence. Obviously, he's got Saint Roy as well as in that, hasn't he, Willie Mullins? Would it be nudging one set of owners to go down one route and stay in their lane and say, look, we've got Saint Roy in this. I'd advise you not to run Concertista. Run her in the easier race, the mares, where we've only got one to beat. So all these kind of imponderables have to be, factored into the equation. Yeah,
absolutely. On now to the Triumph. I think we're going to have to pick up our pace a bit. Because if we carry on like this, it's going to be about a 3.5-hour podcast, and I don't have time for that. On to the Triumph now. We've got Zana here is the 4 to 1 favourite, ahead of Quilixos at 12 to 1, Duffelco and Montmoral 16s alongside Nasalam, who's also 16 to 1. Nasalam is an interesting runner here, I would say. I'm intrigued no end. But anyway, Andy, come to you first here. Looking at the Triumph, who takes your fancy at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to bore everyone with too many numbers because I'll just be churning out numbers left, right, and centre. I've been looking at it going, well, what does that mean? What's a 65? What? But what I'm trying to tell you is that exactly, yeah, I'm trying to give everyone a rough idea of what the numbers I'm saying horses have done in comparison to what previous winners have done. So it puts a little bit more flesh on the bones. It gives you more of an objective view, let's say. The fastest time we've ever recorded, the fastest juvenile we've ever come across is our Connor. Our Connor ran to a 74 when he won the Triumph. We've never awarded a juvenile before then or afterwards anywhere near as high as 74 until up pops Zana here the other day when it won at Fairy House, and lo and behold, he hit exactly the same speed figure, 74, which is quite extraordinary, really, considering he did it without breaking sweat. I know the Mullins camera absolutely dumbfounded by the way that their horse in that race got beat. That was supposed to be their number one juvenile, Saint Sam, was it? The Joseph O'Brien horse, Druid's Alter, who won it first time out on heavy ground. He was well fancied as well, and that got beaten, half the length of a cricket pitch and more. And if you look at I think Racing TV have done this as well. They did a comparison, didn't they, like for like, Ballyadam, Honeysuckle, and they did the split screens with Zanahiyr, and you could just see how far Zanahiyr was ahead of all those other horses, which is a little bit of a red herring in some respects because those were so slowly run. It made Zanahiyr look brilliant, but the overall figures for Zanahiyr were just spectacular. And we won't see a faster juvenile pre-Cheltenham. There's no other horse that will run a 74 prior to Cheltenham. So if you're thinking about something sneaking up on the rails and this is going to do a big number, he'll go to Cheltenham with the fastest time in the bank. Whether we've got something that might improve above and beyond what we've already seen over this side of the RSC and sort of close the gap a bit, it remains to be seen because we've got lots of trials to flow under the water so far. But none of them, for instance, Duffelcoat, he's run a 64. Yumador, the Mullins horse, 63. Monmerial, when it won at Doncaster the other day, a 60. Quixios, 57.42. Nasalam, 46.53, and Adagio, 61. So you can see that the very, very quickest ones up to now is Duffelcoat, Yumador, 64. So that 74 is just a massive streets ahead, and you can see why he's 4-1 favourite.
Would he be backing at fours?
I'd like to sit here smugly and look at you and say I'd already backed him at a bigger price, but unfortunately, I did it took me 2 days to do the time figure and do all the work on the race, and by the time that I'd done it, the price had gone down from, I think it was 10s in the aftermath, and I think then about 3 or 4 days after, it was half the odds. So in that period of time, me doing the work and catching up with the ratings, the price had gone. So the quick answer to you is no, I haven't backed him already. But 4-1, he's the right favourite. You could argue actually, based on my numbers, he should be 2-1.
What if I told you that one of us has an open bet on Saint Sam from before that race, having been told that he couldn't get beat?
Well, exactly. You had the same information I did. They really thought that Saint Sam was a different class, and this Zanahiyr just absolutely battered it.
Yep, I tried to erase it from my memory, but it's all coming back now. Ed, anything on the Triumph?
No, forget it. Move on. No, the Triumph Hurdle are just, I think 5 of the last 8 winners we haven't seen until after Christmas. Just a kind of race I'll make my mind up in Cheltenham week, to be honest with you. Juvenile Hurdles, I swerve from punting propositions.
Fair enough. On then to let's go chasing, and Shishkin is the 64 favourite for the Arkle, ahead of All Mankind at 10-1, 16-1 bar. Firstly, let's tackle Shishkin. Ed, I'll come to you first. I mean, surely going to be one of the most, we don't know what's going to happen between now and March, but those festival bankers that always, pop their heads out. It's pretty hard to find flaws in Shishkin at the moment.
Well, on the evidence of the one chase start, you'd have to be a real Christmas Scrooge to find a problem with that, wouldn't you? I mean, it was just his aptitude, the way he attacked his fences, including the first fence. I was like, wow. He spat my brunch out when I saw that. And then he really just, he was electric, wasn't he? He enjoyed it. He didn't come out of first gear to canter home. And especially we did technically learn a great deal in terms of raw form, in the fact I think he beat Mick Pastor, who he would have been given £22 to in a handicap hurdle. Yeah, it's just the way he went about his business. It did bring back that early shades of Sprinter Sacre at Doncaster. And obviously there's going to be tougher targets ahead. He heads to Kempton next week, and no doubt there'll be a couple in there, at least give him something to think about. I suppose, yeah. I mean, what more do you want to say on what we've seen of his? We know he's a very good hurdler. He won the Supreme, and what we've seen of him over fences so far, it was really exciting. And it would be nice to see him clash against All Mankind, because All Mankind would really go off and make it a proper test. I get a feeling they're going to be ships in the night until the Arkle. I think All Mankind's now being put away to the Kingmaker, and then going on to the festival. And Nick Henderson said Kempton, and then perhaps one other race, which probably won't be the Kingmaker, and then on to Cheltenham. But nonetheless, yeah, Shishkin, really exciting. Really looking forward to him. Obviously not my kind of price now, but I just enjoyed the aesthetic of what he did, and that it clearly is a top class horse.
Anything for you at a bigger price?
Well, the one who's now had a little setback, Alexa Dane. I put him up in the on our previous mention. I'm really looking forward to seeing him over a fence. Of course, he was absolutely tanking at the time of his departure in the Supreme. And a lot of the talk was about Captain Guinness being brought down. Well, I thought he was going equally as well. He's had a little setback. They aimed to get him out in January, but I'm just starting to get the feeling they may rough him off for the year and then bring him back for Novice Chase campaign next season, because he's still young. But no, the Arkle book not particularly stocked in this year, unusually for myself. 25-1
at the moment, Alexa Dane, but whether it comes with a word of caution. Andy?
Yeah, I agree with all what Ed said about Shishkin. He clocked a big number, no great surprise, even though it was a bit of a time trial rather than actual race as such. But again, he's clocked a number that straight away tells you that he's an Arkle horse. You could see that visually, but the numbers did back it up as well. The way he floated over those fences at Kempton, he looks as though he's been doing all his life. He's now got to prove it, obviously going left-handed around Cheltenham, but we know he handles Cheltenham, albeit not over fences. It'd be interesting to see what he's like up, let's say in behind a horse like All Mankind. Should they both get there on the day, and that'll be their chosen engagements. Running it absolutely flat out with horses in and around him. That's the only acid test that what we don't know. And I think from an Ante-Post perspective, A, he's the right price, but B, he's not one that someone personally like me would get excited about backing now, thinking, I'm going to take 5-4, about maybe something that might at very best go off 8-11, 4-6. Because I think, we've seen enough from the likes of Felix Deji, Captain Guinness, and All Mankind, and one or two others to suggest that there's a little bit of depth in this division. I don't think it's completely okay. It's Shishkin. He's only got to turn up and win. He'll have to still go out and break sweat, let's say. Looking at those at much bigger price, I think Willie Mullins has got quite a strong hand in this. The Forgotten Horse is unaccepted in many respects. I mean, there was obviously something quite wrong with Captain Guinness that day at Tipperary when he made his chasing debut and was pulled up. But up to the point when he pulled up, I thought Unaccepted was flying along at a royal rate of knots, and he got him in trouble anyway until that problem reared its ugly head, and Rachel Blackmore decided on discretion at the best part of valour. So he's an interesting runner. And talking to Willie Mullins as well, that he's got a horse called Blackbow, who actually has recorded the very fastest time that we've got either side of the RSC. We've got 74 for Shishkin, but we've also got a 76 for Blackbow when he beat Untukas at Navan on his chasing debut. He's always had a bucket load of class, Blackbow. You go back and look at his Cheltenham Festival running the bumper beyond relegate a few years back. He was fifth that day. He's a proper Grade 1 horse, and the fences seem to be make the making of him. They fit him with 100 of tongue ties. He's obviously got his quirks because he's a bit of a cage tiger kind of thing. He's a little bit hot headed, but I mean, there's no doubt based on the number that he did on his chasing debut, he's got an absolute shed load of talent, and he's 33-1 for the Arkle. Willie Mullins will always have a runner in the Arkle. That's one of the races he loves. So what we're looking at, unaccepted sort of 16s, 20s.
Unaccepted 16s across the board, I should say, and Blackbow 33-1 with Unibet, Paddy Power, and Betfair Sports.
Yeah, I don't think that's the worst strategy in the world at this stage. Backing one of those two Mullins horses who both recorded very fast times. And yeah, I think I think I'd rather go down that route at the moment anyway than take 5-4 back Chiskin.
Well, we're talking about Willie Mullins, so let's go on to the RSA where he has got Monkfish, who is currently 130 with Bet365, as short as 2-1 in the place with Sport Nation. That is, there's still a bit of 7-2, I think, with SBK. The big breakaway is 14-1. Envoy Allen is 14-1, priced up for this race, but I don't think we'll see him here. Latest exhibition 16-1, and another Mullins horse, Enna. I mean, I often can't say a horse's name, but this is one that I've been dreading saying all day. Enugamine, I think we're going to go for. A horse that I've actually backed, so that is interesting. But anyway, Andy, I digress. No one cares what I backed, even though last time we spoke, I actually tipped a winner for the first time, which was exciting.
Yes.
But let's move on then to Monkfish first and foremost. Visually very impressive last time we saw him. What are the numbers saying?
Yeah, yeah, the numbers are saying wow. Put it this way, of the two main dishes served up over that weekend with Monkfish and Envoy Allen, everyone was obviously raving about Envoy Allen, who basically just had to turn and beat three inferior rivals. But I thought there was a good deal of strength and depth in the Monkfish race. Monkfish's overall time figure was way ahead of Envoy Allen's. It was a much better race. They went at a much stronger gallop. And he literally never came out of a canter to win. I think the actual comments afterwards were a canter. And to be able to do that to the horses he beat that day, it just shows you how good this horse is. We know how good the Albert Bartlett form was last year. Yeah, your time hills, your latest exhibitions. And he did it in a kind of fashion, a dogged fashion that suggested that he's got plenty of stamina when required. He was very free as well in the Albert Bartlett. He had no real right to find as much as he did off the bridle. He should have dropped out the back of the telly. So he's clearly a horse of some substance. And now that he's got fences in front of him, literally the sky's the limit. I can imagine Richie's on the phone to Willie Mullins every day and saying, "Is Monkfish okay? Is Monkfish okay?" Because if he were mine, I literally wouldn't be able to sleep. I think he's very much the next. He's the next coming. He's the big star. I mean, obviously Envoy Allen's the other one as well. We're spoiled really with these two horses because I think we're in another years further down the line, these two are going to end up clashing in the Gold Cup. I think they're that good. I actually think Envoy Allen can go the other way, and he actually could win a champion chase. He's that good. But I do think Monkfish is going to be really even better when he's got a 3-mile stamina test and he's allowed to let rip round Cheltenham. So I think Sport Nation have got that right 2-1, and I even think the 130 with Bet365 come festival time will look one of the value bets of the festival.
And this is one, the perils of Ante-Post betting. You don't know where horses are going to turn up, but I think we can be pretty sure here that Monkfish will be in the RSA.
Yeah. One-way ticket to the RSA, yeah. Unless,
obviously the only thing that can bite you is any fitness or injury issues. But 130 with 365 looks big for Andy. Ed, it's your style to look at something with a 1 or a 2 at the beginning of the price, and that's not for 130. So what are you looking at here in the RSA?
Well, obviously I've tipped and backed big breakaway Ante-Post at 40-1, so I'm kind of don't quite know what I've got the price, but after last time out's 2-9 debacle, a bit nervous now, but I still flummoxed. I mean, the Colin Tizard team, I think they had 5 winners from the last 50 runners or something. I cannot work that yard out for love nor money. Some of the biggest rated horses in the yard, the likes of Lost in Translation, Slate House, Copperhead, barely lifting a leg this season, and then the big breakaway turned over at 2-9. The dropping trip was daft, as you'd say in the aftermath. But look, back at 3 miles, I think we could see him put in a good performance again. He goes to Kempton on Boxing Day, where he's going to meet Sham Blue, who's an exciting type from the Dan Skelton team, and that'd be interesting over Kempton over 3. And I think he's going to struggle to beat Monkfish, in all honesty, but if he can at least get to the race on the day, I still think there's scope in value in his price, because again, there's no other race the big breakaway will run in at the Cheltenham Festival other than the RSA. I've already heard little quotes from some of those latest exhibitions and a few of those in and around them. All he does is stay all day. Straight away, I start thinking the National Hunt Chase, and then a couple of others could perhaps come down in trip. But again, talking about identifying the target. If the horse is fit, he's well, and he's shown a good level of form. There's no other race at the Cheltenham Festival now. The Tizards have basically said they've scrapped the 2.5 mile plan from here on going forwards. He will run in the RSA chase. Now, whether he goes off a 25-1 shot out of form, or whether he goes there as the 11-2 second favourite as the kind of the home horse, if you like, then we will see. But he's definitely a horse of a lot of ability. the Tizard team had a horrendous Cheltenham last year. I think it's 2 Cheltenhams running now, and the yard just seems to be woefully out of form as well. It's not like the horses are just running badly. I mean, Copperhead jumped 6 fences in the Ladbrokes Trophy and was pulled up. Slate House jumped 5 and there's something does seem amiss. If they could click back into gear in time for March, I think the big breakaway. I think the market's more or less got it spot on. I don't think there's any kind of secrets in here at the moment. I think Monkfish is head and shoulders above the rest. And I think the big breakaway and get himself sorted back over 3 miles, he could be the best of the rest, if you like.
Feels like the Tizard team have been cursed at Cheltenham ever since Native River won the Gold Cup. Basically, from that moment, they've just had a terrible time at Presby Park. But anyway, we'll move on now to the Marsh. We spoke about one mightily impressive horse in Monkfish a second ago, but in Envoy Allen, I think we have possibly the most exciting horse in training, who's currently 5-4, best price with Bet365. Odds on in places Betway, Ball Sports, 10 bets, Sport Nation and Red Zone, all odds on about Envoy Allen. Chatham Street Lads and Protectorat, 16-1 and 18-1. Blackbow, who we've already spoken about, 20-1. I mean, Ed, can we pick any holes in Envoy Allen? I mean, obviously the price is pretty prohibitive, and we're probably not going to sit here telling people to get involved. But in terms of, what's going to turn up to the Marsh looking to take it on?
Yeah, indeed. You can't really pick holes in him. No, as Andy points out, perhaps there might be a little bit hyperbole about what he's actually achieved over fences, because we know how good he was as a hurdler. Goosebump stuff last time out, wasn't it? When an inch of rain coming to 4 out, and he just took off, and he was brilliant. Yeah, like, he's the right price, right favourite, blah blah blah. It's almost a la Monkfish and Shishkin to some extent. I mean, the horse I put in my flagged up in my 5 to follow on the show a month or so ago is Fiddler on the Roof, again, another horse from the informed Colin Tizard team, and I'm convinced he's a lot better. We'll actually get to see him soon. He runs at Ascot on Friday, and he'll probably go off near enough favourite there for that race. And again, the yard had been under a bit of a cloud, yet he did win. I was really happy with the manner in which he jumped, and he won at Exeter on pretty quick ground over 2-3. And then he ran at Newbury last time out, where he bumped into an exposed type called Caribbean Boy of the Nicky Henderson team, who we'll see on Saturday in a graduation chase at Exeter. But I think Fiddler on the, I think he wants soft ground. He needs the yard to get back in form. And I'm convinced, this is a previous Tolworth winner again, that the wheels just came off for him at the Cheltenham Festival. If you could just somehow get him back to get his verve back to where he was, I think the key thing with him is he jumps really well. And that's what I like about him. He really does make ground at his fences. I think he wants a bit of soft ground. As I said, if the yard form could just pick up and they could get, I see Colin Tizard saying he's given a lot of horses tests at the moment. We almost need to put a track and trace down on their horses in the Tizard team, don't they? I mean, he says they've been running tests on their horses because some of them have just been inexplicably so bad that they can't quite work out what's going on. But I'm convinced Finn on the Roof is, in terms of his engine, is a lot better than what we've seen over fences so far. His jumping has more or less not been a lot wrong with it, which is the encouraging part of it, if you see what I'm saying. So it's a bit of a crossroads day for him at Ascot on Friday. He takes on Pick Dorkey and Alart. That's a pretty good race, has to be said, over 2-3.5 on soft. If you can't win that, then you can forget the kind of Marsh aspirations, or at least being in the shake-up. But my view was he'd win one of these and win it well, and then 33-1 would crash into about 12s on the basis of that. So I was waiting for him to win one and win it well.
Fiddler on the Roof, 33-1. Unibet, William Hill, Sky Bet. Andy, what can we say about Envoy Allen?
That hasn't already been said.
Nothing probably.
Yeah, I think, on the build-up to Cheltenham last year and on 1 or 2 previews, we've already managed to shoehorn his name in there somewhere, because he's just the best national horse pound for pound around at the moment, isn't he? If you were using a boxing analogy. Just jumps, he travels, he's got a great attitude. He's done 2 very, very slow times in his victories. You might have thought he was spectacular the other day, but he's run his two numbers that we've got him doing, which is he's done a 41 at Down Royal, and he's done a 55 when he won the Grade 1 last time out. He only needed to run to a 55 to win a Grade 1 in Ireland last time, and that just shows you how bad the other 3 were. And his quickest time ever was in the Ballymore last year at 81. We recorded the fastest time we got last season of any horse was Envoy Allen when he won the Ballymore, when he ran to an 81. So he's got that in his locker. He can run to an 81, and at the moment he's been running, basically just jogging round. So he's got to a position where he's a 5-4 favourite to win the Marsh Chase, running a 41 and a 55. The problem is he's not going to run a fast time between now and the Cheltenham Festival because the opposition's going to be scared off. He'll probably have a 2-3 runner race in Ireland somewhere, maybe Leopardstown, and then one more, and it'll just be runs for experience. So we'll only really see what Envoy Allen's capable of doing when he runs in the Marsh Chase at the Cheltenham Festival, and we know that with the clear round, he's by far and away the best. So if you're backing him Ante-Post, you just got to hope that he stays healthy, because I don't think there's really anything good enough to lace his boots, to be honest.
What price do you reckon he goes off?
Well, he'll be odds on, won't he? I mean, we need to see whether the likes of Chattermill Lad, maybe Protectorat, maybe Andrew Dufresne. He's another horse I think has got a shed load of talent. Yeah. We haven't mentioned him, but he's funny enough. He's clocked 2 faster times than Envoy Allen. I think he's run to a 66 and a 74. Very much under the radar without too many flashing lights. But yeah, it's a race at the moment. I'll get a little bit more excited about that race from a betting perspective pre the trials day, let's say in January.
Okay, on then to the last race we're going to cover before getting on to the four big ones, and the Ryanair is next. Min and Imperial Aura 7-1 joint favourites with Lost in Translation and Sam Crow both 14-1, Alaho 16-1 and 20-1 bar. Ed, one you like in here though that I haven't mentioned yet is Fakir Dudaries at 33s.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with him, and not very often you get really happy when a horse gets beaten, which you're a fan of, which was exactly the case last time at Fakir Dudaries. Remember, we were having this chat, and I said he's coming back over 2 miles, and I want to see him outpaced, beaten, and then they scrap the crazy 2 mile plans, because he's a horse who needs to step up in trip. And so, yeah, to stop rattling on, I generally still think 33-1. He's a big player in the Ryanair chase market. They've more or less said, look, they're scrapping 2 miles from now on. He'd be over 2.5 miles going further forward. We know he likes Cheltenham. Of course, that Arkle form looks pretty solid, doesn't it? Put the kettle on a good old race in the Arkle last year. Rouge Vif's come out. He was beaten in third and won a decent pod at Cheltenham. And yeah, this is actually really shaping up to be a really good race. You're going to have like Imperial Aura on the upgrade. You've got Min, the other end of his career, but still, when we can actually see him run amongst fog, actually still running to a pretty good level. And there's some really excited types in here. But I generally do think Fakir Dudaries is the one overpriced in here because, again, I don't see what other race he runs in at the Cheltenham Festival. He likes Cheltenham. He's won at Cheltenham. He's got festival form. And he's got a touch of class. So he's the each-way player. But this is really exciting. I think Imperial Aura has really jumped really well last time out. I thought I was really excited by him. And, of course, Min just looks evergreen. There's a whole host of potential horses in here, including like Caribbean Boy was another one I just wanted to quickly flag up, who, again, beat Fiddler on the Roof, who may not turn out to be exceptional form. That horse is now, Caribbean Boy is no longer a novice. He's really interested. I thought just the manner in which he jumped in Newbury again was fantastic. Didn't touch a twig, jumped and travelled well. Big, strong horse, and be interested with him going further forward. But yeah, my Fakir Dudaries still my Ante-Post pick, and I've gone in again. The fact he drifted on the basis of what I thought would happen, in that he got beaten over the minimum trip because he's not quick enough. So yeah, but it looks wide open.
Andy.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing price. That is. Ed's really very much in the right direction with Fakir Dudaries. I must admit, I thought all the way through that race, or certainly 9/10 of it, I thought Fakir Dudaries was going to win. He jumped, he travelled fantastic. Some of those jumps down the back at Navan were spectacular. He's got an amazing amount of scope for a not if you like a national hunt type horse. He's not like as big as robust as a Notebook who beat him that day, but he's got an amazing leap in him. Yeah, for some reason he just didn't get, he just got outpaced, or maybe it might have been a little bit of lack of the run. Who knows? It was a bit of 6 of one of half a dozen of the other. But he's a massive talent and a big player, likely to be in the Ryanair. The race I'd probably, or the 2 races I'd concentrate on with regards to collateral form would be the races run back to back simultaneously last year. The Ryanair winner Min and Sam Crow's race. And again, it's another race where I did a lot of split screen stuff and some sectionals and what have you. And the Marsh Chase is by a million miles a better race than the Ryanair. So I'd be pretty sure that Min and all those horses that took part in that race, your Plutards and St Calvados, they wouldn't be good enough to beat the likes of Mel and Sam Crow and Faheen, although I don't think maybe Faheen will maybe not come back to Cheltenham. But the form's worked out great. McKnight's Shadow nearly won the big handicap the other day, the Caspian Caviar. Mr. Fisher finally bounced back to form in a small field around the new course rather than the old course, which didn't suit him in the Paddy Pazza. That form of that Marsh Chase is definitely the key angle for me from last season. So I'd probably look at Sam Crow, who was clearly not quite right first time out, but we saw that with Abracadabra. He got beat first time out. Next time out was a different story. But he's a talented horse. He'd come in the spring on better ground for Sam Crow. So I'd probably throw him into the mix at 14-1, and Ed's Fakir de Risk. That's another massive price about a genuine Grade 1 horse.
Sam Crow 14-1, Paddy's and Betfair Sportsbook, and Fakir Duderis is 30-1 with Unibet and Bet365 there. Both Ed and Andy very keen, but Ed's selection for the Ryanair. On then to the Champion Hurdle. And Epitant is the 6-4 favourite ahead of Saint Roy. Abracadabra is 8-1, who's been tipped up by Andy for the race. Honeysuckle 16, Song for Someone 20s alongside Concertista, who we've discussed, and Aspire Tower. Andy, we'll come to you in a second to talk about Abracadabras and your make of the race. Ed, it's another short-priced horse. It's gonna be popular with punters, but again, I think we're looking down the list hopefully for a bit of value.
Yeah, potentially. Although I actually think at the market as it is now, I don't really see anything massively left to field jumping off the page. I think the protagonists are the ones you want to be sticking with. I think Epitant, the right favourite, the reigning champion. Abracadabra's going to go there with every chance. Strong traveller. We saw that last year on the whole jumps pretty well. St. Roy is the one I'm on Ante-Post. I wouldn't be giving up on that one. There wasn't much between... in fact, there was hardly anything between St. Roy and Abracadabra's last time out, and St. Roy made an absolute Horlicks of the last flight as well. So I think you can almost flow a blanket over the next few, and then it's just a case of whether they can get past Epitant with the dreaded £7 mare's allowance, isn't it? So, and then, of course, you could throw in the fact Concertista or Honeysuckle could even be rerouted here. So I think the market's got it pretty much right at the moment. From an Ante-Post betting perspective, there's nothing that's really jumping off the page, unless you wanted to perhaps chance your arm with Concertista now at around 22-1. If she runs Abracadabras and St. Roy to within anything next week, then she's going to be getting towards single figures, isn't she? So, but generally speaking, I think the market's got it right. Epitant's the one to beat, and there's some exciting and exposed types in behind. It's just a case of who turns up on the day, and the value's kind of gone now to take a big chance, is what I'm saying. So I just sit and wait it out if you haven't already got involved. Potentially, if you wanted to chance, if there was one in there, throwing a few quid on Concertista might not be the worst bet in the world, because if she does happen to upset the apple cart next week, and given how well she looked last time out, she could get connections tempted to go the Champion Hurdle route in the long run.
Andy, Epitant to the top, but how are you feeling about your tip, Abracadabras?
Yeah, in some respects, the pressure's off. Now Epitant's gone and done what she's done. I fully expected Abracadabra to perhaps win first time. I'm a bit disappointed. He was only third to Aspire Tower, but glad to have him back on board and on side again and in full working order when he beat St. Roy. Now, obviously, a lot of it was made of the ride that St. Roy got and maybe should have won and was a bit unlucky. But in all fairness, Abracadabra would have been the last horse in the world you would have been wanting, hitting the front, jumping the second last, and having a thick end of a quarter of a mile to run on heavy ground at Punchestown. So I thought he did really well to hang as tough as he did. So you've got to give him a little bit of credit as well as highlight the foibles of what happened to St. Roy. So I think there's positives with each one, St. Roy and Abracadabra, and I think they are the right second and third favourite. I still believe Abracadabra is an amazing each way bet. I tipped him at 10-1, didn't I? After he's Supreme Novice second, he's still 8-1 now, which in the cold light of day still looks an amazing each way nugget, because him and Shiskin pulled the thick end of 12 lengths clear of a very good Supreme Novices field in a fast time, and the ground wouldn't have been ideal for Abracadabra. Again, he hit the front far sooner than he would have wanted. But let's face it, look who he got beat by, Shiskin. I mean, we're talking of a horse who could be odds on for a Cheltenham Festival race. So I think come better ground in a Champion Hurdle, when they're going to go a good gallop, that's when we'll see the best is Abracadabra. I just hope for Ante-Post players, including myself, that we get a slightly better surface than what we got last year when it was genuinely heavy. It's probably the worst of the conditions I'd seen for the last 10 years. You've been luckier, let's say, if it was as bad as last year. So I'll be very hopeful for Abracadabras.
Abracadabra is still 8-1 with Bet365, 888, and Betfred. Before we move on to the Champion Chase, we're going to play a quick game. It's a variation of a very popular game where we're going to play back, lay, and hold with the three hot pots at the moment. So Epatante, Envoy, Allen, and Shishkin. You have to choose which one you'd like to back at the prices, which one you would want to steer clear of, and which one you kind of leave in the middle. So Andy, starting with you.
What were they again? Epatante,
Envoy, Allen, and Shishkin. 6-4, 6-4, even money, 5-4.
I would say Envoy, Allen back. I'd say stick with Epatante, and I'd probably lay Shishkin because I do think he's plenty short enough. I'd rather back Envoy Allen in his category at 5-4 than I would Shishkin at 5, because I do think I've highlighted All Mankind, Unaccepted, Captain Guinness, Felix Deji, Blackbow. I've got 5 or 6 others, big guns ever run big numbers, all running for me there if I was a bookmaker at this stage.
Ed, same question.
Yeah, definitely. Envoy Allen back. I'd probably stick Shishkin, and I'd lay Epatante just because I think there are some good horses she's going to have to race. I know it sounds silly, it's a Champion Hurdle, but
Champion Hurdle.
Exactly. Saint Roy and Abracadabra is going to, and especially if a couple of the mares, if Honeysuckle and Concertista lined up in this as well, the Champion Hurdle is always a tough race to win. So but I mean, pedantic's really not much between them. But yeah, definitely Envoy Allen out of those three. He's not had to come out. The interest list Andy's speed figures and the fact that he's not had to do anything to literally win, in a common canter. And we know from his hurdling days, was it a rating of 81? And he's saying on the speed figures, we know he can go to 5 years more, which is frightening when you come to think about it. And I think he will scare a lot of the opposition off. It a single figure, 7 or 8 runner marsh chase with him at 4-9 is not too far fetched, I don't think.
On to the Champion Chase now. 3 more to go. Chacun pour soi is the 3-1 favourite ahead of Altior at 7-1. Andy's selection put the kettle on 8-1. Politolog, the winner of the Tingle Creek, is 9-1. Notebook 16-1. Ed, let's just talk about what happened at Sandown. We didn't see Altior, as everybody knows. Politolog went and beat what he had to beat and did it well. So what do we make of those two coming into this as they're priced up at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, the way I would view this, again, from a slightly different angle to perhaps Andy or some other people would be, I think of all the championship races, this is probably the most ground-dependent race, in terms of if the ground's officially good on the day compared to heavy on the day. I think this swings some of these horses at least a stone either way, depending on what comes up. And 11-year-old Altior on heavy, I wouldn't be getting excited about at all. Whereas we've seen Politolog on soft, just jumps and gallops, these kind of change of tactics, if you like. Harry Scout's on clearly in his element at the moment, but he's 10. There's a lot of old horses in here, if you like, and then the younger ones I generally think do want a better surface. I like to see them on. Put the Kettle on is probably the solid mare in the fact that she pretty much will go on anything, probably be enhanced by a bit better ground actually. In the Schlur Chase, I think Eddie Coleman referenced it was quite hard work, but a class got her home, and she's like the rock solid one in there. But if the horse that was second in the Tingle Creek, Granatine, I wouldn't totally give up on yet at 28-1. The way he won the Holden Gold Cup, he won it with a burst of speed in the closing stages. I know he's got a lot of form on soft, but his action makes me think I'd love to see him on a bit of spring ground on a faster surface. He does look like a horse. He's not going to grind you into submission, but he's going to come there and try and pounce and quicken up. Now, perhaps he'd be suited by flatter tracks, but I thought all in all, it was a pretty good run in the Tingle Creek, considering he was stepping out of a handicap company, really, from the Grand Annual and the Holden Gold Cup, and he acquitted himself fairly well. So Paul Nicholls says he's going to put him away to miss out the worst of the winter ground. He's only 6, of course, so he's still a young horse. He's entitled to improve. He's going to go to the Game Spirit and then on to the Champion Chase, where Harry Cobden will ride. And I think he was around the 25-1 mark or 21 mark there or thereabouts. So I still think he's got improvement in the locker, shall we say. But again, I just think this could be such a ground-dependent race. Soft, heavy ground really throws a totally different complexion on it. If we got our old Edredon Blur days, which I don't think we'll ever see again, if you see what I'm saying. So it's a funny old race to call. And of course, we just all itching to see Altior back on the track. And he's due to line up against Duke de Geneva and put the kettle on at Kempton in 8-9 days' time, which should be an absolute corker.
Fingers crossed we see Altior there. Andy, Ante-Post 3-1 favourite, rightful favourite, and how are you feeling about your tip? Put the kettle on now.
I think he's always the kind of horse who's going to work his way to ahead of any market because of his reputation. He was brilliant that day at Punchestown, wasn't he? But he's never been around Cheltenham yet. So let's see what he can do around Presby Park. I mean, the previous winners of the Champion Chase have usually either come from the previous year's Arkle, or they've got plenty of Cheltenham Festival or just Cheltenham form per se. You'd very rarely get a horse first time off the back coming around here and winning. So I'd be a little bit lukewarm about him, I must admit. I don't think he's quite as good as what everyone makes out he is to be. Put it this way: when he won at Court the other day, his time figure and his circuit time was only equivalent to a horse called Mount Ida, who is about a 130 horse who won a beginner's chase. So that straight away got the alarm bells ringing for me. I was thinking this horse should have been running quicker than that.
Didn't jump all that well.
No, he didn't. No, and obviously there's got to be. Yeah, it took it to frigidity as well, Ed. I mean, there's got to be something not quite right with Altior for him to not run at Sandown the other day. I mean, what on earth did Nicky Henderson want? I mean, I think he got a bit woolly because the two novices that got beat, Grand Mogul and the Juvenile, got beat earlier. But let's face it, that hurdle track at Sandown is always renowned to be a quagmire, whereas the chase track is pretty much, soft at worst. I was amazed he took him out. I just think he got completely sidetracked by those two getting beat and thought, oh God, the ground. But it was on a different track, and I think it was a mistake for him not to run. So I just think he's looking for any excuse really not to run Altior or not give him a hard race. Talking of ground conditions being, not bothered either way. If you want an Ante-Post, well, put the kettle on my horse. Doesn't mind it. I don't think she wants a bog. As Aidan Coleman said when he got off the other day at Cheltenham, her guts got her home, and I think she hated the ground when she won the Schlur Chase. But once again, she proved her durability. She proved she loves Cheltenham. I think she was a 20-1 shot last year, predominantly because everyone thought she was a good ground mare, having won early on in the season a 4-runner race on good ground. And I think she's just caught everyone by surprise of how good she was. But her time figure when winning the Arkle was good. The form of the Arkle's worked out really well, including her win. And De Bromhead's just a master with these 2-mile chases. So, I can't remember what price I put the kettle on.
20-1. You
20-1, yeah. I mean, 20-1 for put the kettle on now, 8-1. I mean, what's not to like? She's proven her well-being this season. I wouldn't change her for the world, to be honest. I don't know what Ed thinks.
Yeah, I think she's rock solid. She's the one that, when I touched on earlier, in terms of the ground issue, she's the one that will act on any surface. Whereas I said, if the ground came up very soft, you could bin your Granatine and your Rouge Vif slip, in my view. I don't think Altior age 11 would a heavy ground champion chase would be found wanting, and the ballpark would sway massively back towards Politologue. And Ante-Post, just again to touch upon, I'm just not convinced by him. He doesn't particularly jump that well. As I said, he's had a lot of injuries, this horse. He's infrequently seen, and even Ruby Walsh, of course, he's a bit
like Naby Cater, isn't he?
Well, I was going to say Jack Wilshere, but poor old Jack will be suing me for libel soon. So I'll be, but he's clearly a horse of a lot of ability. But it was interesting to listen to Ruby Walsh's comments on television the other day. Ruby obviously being quite close to the yard. He said even he wasn't all that blown away by Ante-Post in terms of. I do think he's clearly a horse of a lot of ability, and I just want to see him in a kind of race before Cheltenham, if that makes sense. It may not be the case, and we'll find out on the day, which will, in part, perhaps maybe will make the market and make it more exciting. But it's a muddling old contest, the Champion Chase, and so I've got a small bet on Granatine, and just if the ground came up decent, I think he'd be played late and could run into a place, but no particular strong view.
Granatine 20-1 pretty much across the board there. On now to the stayers, a much more open stayers than we've had in recent years, although the one that's normally at the top of the market is in its second favourite. Time Hill is 5-1. Paisley Park is 11-2. Cider Burley with that little gold star, which means that it's an Andy Holding tip next door to him on the oddschecker grids, 7-1. Benny de Dieu 10-1. Fury Road 12-1. Roxana 20. Fabulous 20. Ronald Pump, close your ears, Andy, 20. And he could come to you first here, and fair to say, and it's following a bit of a theme these last few races, but I know that you're still pretty keen on Cider Burley.
Yeah, I have been really since doing the numbers from the Per Temps final last year. I think I told everyone that was prepared to listen that this is going to be next year's Stayers Hurdle win. I was pretty convinced that the Stayers Hurdle division was poor, backed up by the numbers in the Lisnagar Oscar Stayers Hurdle at Paisley Park. It was just a weak race, and obviously Paisley didn't run anywhere near his best. But I think even if he would have done, he wouldn't have beaten Cider Burley or the Storyteller for that factor. On the same day, streets ahead of the Grade 1 horses, and it's just one of those horses. I just could not believe the price he was after, and it's taken even now people to cotton onto how good he is, and I still think his price is wrong. I still think 7-1 is way too big for a horse of his quality. I mean, he just stays forever, but he's got so much quality. To win over 2.5 miles first time out was a head scratcher for me. I don't know how he managed to do that. I thought he was sure to get beat. I mean, he won for 9-2, and looking back, that was an amazing price. I didn't have a farthing on him because I just didn't think he could win over 2.5 miles first time out. I thought, well, he's a spring horse. He wants 3 miles. He wants Cheltenham. Yeah. So it just shows you how good he is. The fact that he was able to win over, against adversity. The only fly in the ointment for me is Time Hill, who obviously beat Paisley Park fair and square the other day, and he'll be clocking a good final circuit time. It wasn't a great overall time because obviously they crawled in the first part of the race until they got going on the second circuit. But the second circuit time was phenomenal. So it was a really good, strongly run last 2 miles. And Time Hill, I thought, was really good. And we know how good is Albert Bartlett for me. So I think Time Hill will probably win at Ascot. If he doesn't, maybe Main Fat might beat him. But under the conditions, that's the only scenario I could see there. And Cider Burley, who skipped the long walk, which was almost predictable to run at Leopardstown, where he looks as though he's got a complete freebie. He'll only have run or pumped to beat one. I mean, the other Irish horses are absolutely tragic. I mean, I can't. Can anyone name a good 3-mile hurdler in Ireland apart from Cider Burley? I mean, he should be odds on, and he will be odds on, and he'll win easily.
Yeah.
So if you've got him in your 10 to follow, there's another maximum points for a Grade 1. And let's just hope that Gordon Elliott can keep him with one piece come the day. Because if he does, then he'll be my biggest Ante-Post winner ever if he wins the Stayers Hurdle.
Party at Andy's, although might still be in Tier 3 by then. Come mid-March.
I'm almost tempted to back him again. Even that it's the craziest strategy to have him in back to him at all rates all the way down to I think I cut off at 12s. To go in again at 7s, but I'm that confident that I know that he can't possibly be 7-1 on the day.
He's 5-2 to win at Christmas.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I am saying who's gone 5-2? Are they mad?
Unless we're 9-4, 5-2 generally. Yeah, Fury Road 5-2, 11-4 run.
Okay.
Unless I'm looking at out-of-date market, but there we go.
If you're using the oddschecker app, Ed, there's absolutely no chance.
I need to get.
We'll hurry this on.
One or two people organised for that, I think.
Right. Quickly on the stairs, well, not quickly on the stairs, Ed. You got me excited because you sent me an email before we recorded saying with your kind of a couple of your fancies, and Thomas Darby was one of them, and you put 100-1 next door. So I was excited to give a 3-figure tip. But the best price, Ed, is 80s. You've slashed up the prices. Can't believe it. Give us the lowdown on Thomas Darby for Ollie Murphy.
Again, I'm repeating a lot of them from our 5 to follow show from last time, in which I identified he's a horse of which they're aiming at. Basically, he came out and said we're going to have a crack at the Stayers Hurdle route with him. Now, he was entered in the long walk, and I would actually like to have seen him have a crack at Paisley Park and Time Hill tomorrow, given that his best performance over hurdles so they did come at Ascot, and the form of that race is now looking pretty good, isn't it? Because he swatted aside Song for Someone, and that horse has turned out to be pretty good. And anyway, funny enough, so in Andy's freebie race, it sounds like Thomas Darby's going to Leopardstown to run against him and Fury Road and Ronald Pump over Christmas. And look, 100-1, the logic was, or 80-1 now. Always has been my logic. There's about 15, 20 horses ahead of him in the Ante-Post list who either A, are nowhere near good enough to win a Stayers Hurdle, B, are already over fences, C, on the sidelines, have got no intention of ever going near a Stayers Hurdle. Yet you've got the trainer come out and say, look, we're going to go to Grade 1 over Christmas, then we're going to look at the Cleve, and then we're going to look at the Stayers Hurdle. And as I said, you can burn yourself money by taking trainers' quotes on face value too often, but in this case, it's all starting to add up. The fact, he's entered in at Leopardstown here, Thomas Darby, and they're going to have a good old look. And I just love to see him over a staying trip. His best performance today over hurdles was the furthest he'd run when he ran over 2.5 at Ascot under a big weight on soft ground. He beat Song for Someone. I said that form's looking good, and I'm just looking at something that's going to crash from a massive price. And he's only got to end up the backsides of Fury Road and Cider Burley, beating 2 or 3 lengths and run a good race, and instantly he will shorten up a lot. And if he just makes it to the race, he's going to be a 14, 16 to 1 poke, if you like. So, again, I cannot see he's not going to run in a Coral Cup off 159 or whatever. There's no other race he will run at the Cheltenham Festival. If he's not good enough and he doesn't run, or we'll go to Aintree. If he is good enough, he'll get there about a fifth of the price he is now. That's the kind of logic, if you see what I'm saying. So Thomas Darby, and I'm actually quite excited. The fact he's going over to Ireland. I think Ollie Murphy's reasoning is they thought on heavy ground for his first time at 3 miles against Paisley Park and Time Hill, perhaps they could leave his season behind. Bizarrely enough, the weather in Ireland actually looks kinder than it does here, and you could be racing on yielding to soft in 9 days' time over at Leopardstown. But anyway, I just thought he was a big price, given that the trainer is targeting that horse at the race. And in terms of official ratings, he's only kind of £8 to £10 off getting in the ballpark. And if he improves a step up in trip, then he's a big player at a price.
Lovely stuff. 80 to 1 with Bet365 as it stands. 50s kind of across the board. So you might have to be quick to get that 80s. The 100s long gone. The Quigley household have taken that 100 to 1 apart.
Well, I wonder if I end up doing a piggyback with Ollie Murphy. If that turns out. I don't,
Fingers crossed.
I have to stay clear.
Yeah, well, I think piggybacks might be banned at Cheltenham Festival unless you're part of Ollie's bubble. Get them over to come and stay at yours for the festival week. On to the Gold Cup now, and Al Boom Photo is trying to make it 3 in a row and is 11 to 2 favourite to do so. Santini, heartbreak for Andy, 8 to 1. Minella Indo, the one for Andy this year, or at least was earlier in March, 8 to 1 as well. Champ, 12 to 1. Lost in Translation, 16 to 1 alongside Surname and presenting Percy. Andy, we'll come to you first here. Intriguing top 3 in the market. The champion, the one that was touched off last time, and the one that you probably got for a few quid.
Yeah, there was a few heartbreakers, wasn't there, last year at the festival? Like there is every year, you have highs and lows, and Santini not winning the Gold Cup was a bit of a kick in the old leather regions. But yeah, I don't think much of last year's Gold Cup in essence. I think, we're likely to get the new wave coming through. And then obviously from last season looked to cut above, didn't they? The looks of Minella Indo and Champ, that RSA looks the best form, looks a better race than the Gold Cup. The fact that Model managed to hang on in there and finish a close-up 4th just shows you what a poor race the Gold Cup was, and Santini is very slow, isn't he? Look, I know more than anyone, having done his numbers and his sectionals and what he's all about. Santini needs it almost needs 4 miles, doesn't he? I mean, it took him 3 miles to get warmed up around Aintree the other day, and he still looked very.
It was a remarkable run, that, given the way that he ran. Oh yeah, never travelling to be.
I mean, he's literally off the bridle in the parade ring, isn't he, Santini?
That's a good one. I like that.
So look, you know what you're going to get with him. I think he's the type of horse you almost need to put a pair of blinkers on and just shove him from the front. Because you've just got to keep going. You've got to keep the revs up. You can't let the pace slacken with him at any stage. You've got to be in control of what Santini's doing. Because if others dictate to you what's going to happen, there's no way Santini can win a Gold Cup. And that's what happened last year. I don't think Nico decided whether to stick or twist coming down the hill when he got to the front on the rails. He should have been going, hell for leather, but he didn't. He let him get out. He got outpaced. Looked like he was going to get completely swamped, and then he ran on again up the hill, agonising, and finished second. But look, getting back around to my pick this year, Minella Indo, similar to put the kettle on and one or two others. I'm happy with the position I'm in. He looked the one to take out last year's RSA. He chased a very hot pace with Alaho. He looked about half an hour the best horse in the race, and he got his pocket picked by Champ, who was tailed off at the top of the hill and just picked up the pieces late on. So yeah, I mean, he's proven around Cheltenham twice over, winner of an Albert Bartlett, second in an RSA, won round Wexford first time this year, which I didn't think he was capable of doing. I thought that was a bogey track. He won well there. Obviously, he won at an avenue. So everything about Minella Indo this season is going in the right direction.
Yeah,
he's Welby's proven. He'll run in maybe one or both of those 2 races in Leopardstown against his own counterparts, and hopefully comes through and sets himself up for a tilt at the Gold Cup, because I think he's definitely got a big one in him soon. Maybe this year, but if not, the year after.
So Manila Indo still 8-1 as it stands. Delta Work then at a big price.
Doesn't jump well enough.
33-1, Ed.
Yeah, I just thought, again, from a price perspective, given that I can't see him going off anywhere near that. Andy made the comment that he doesn't jump well enough. He probably didn't in the Gold Cup last year, but again, I just think his best form in Ireland. He puts him right in amongst the official figures anyway. He's pretty much bang there with all of these, and I think he's a fair old price. I think they got him fourth favourite to win the race over Christmas. Given he's kind of been there and done it, I wonder if he's a bit big for that around the 5-1 mark. But anyway, I just thought 33-1 again. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he won the Irish Gold Cup or won the Savills Chase. And I see him starting about a 10-12-1 poke on purely on that basis of, again, where else is he going to run? There's no danger of him going elsewhere. And I take Andy's point. I'm still got sour grapes after I was on Lost in Translation and Santini win only for the Gold Cup last year. So just had to just hide in the back of in the back of my bedroom, just sat down, winced after that. But it just it's a funny old race. I mean, Champ, with a lot of negative vibes about that horse at the moment. I see Nicky Henderson saying, potentially we might not see him until January now. He's got a crucial bit of work to come. So that wouldn't exactly be getting you enthusiastic about the RSA Chase winner. But of those at the top of the market, I really like Manila Indo. I think just rock solid. The kind of pecking order is going to get sorted out to some extent over Christmas, isn't it? Especially if we do get Champ, Delta Work, Presenting Percy, and Manila Indo all running against each other. That will kind of sort the wheat from the chaff. And in almost moving on into almost a bizarre logic, but I cannot for the life of me ever have Surname winning a Gold Cup. Yet, if he does win the King George, he's pretty much going to be second favourite or vying for favouritism, especially if he blows them away. And listen to Paul Nicholls, they're almost not afraid to have a tilt at the Gold Cup going further forward. So he's 16-1. I cannot see him. It just doesn't strike me as a Gold Cup winner. Yet if he does win a King George, come through prices, he goes out there and he routs the opposition. Well, what price is he? He's got to be around a 5-1 mark for a Gold Cup, and he's 16s at the moment. But yeah, Manila Indo, those at the top. For a horse, I just think will start a third the price he is now, probably Delta Work, and Surname, a horse. He's just, if you wanted value, I suppose, if you think he's going to win the King George, then you might as well back him in the Gold Cup, because he'll definitely be running there if he wins the King George.
Sticks to one of those, that Surname, where it wins the King's George, gets clipped in, and then as soon as the Betfair exchange market takes any kind of a handle, suddenly it goes back out through the roof again.
Yeah, absolutely.
But great to see both of you guys keen on Manila Indo's prospects at 8-1 and 33-1, as I said, for Ed on Delta Work. If you disagree with Andy about the jumping deficiencies. Thank you guys so much for joining me today and taking us through this Cheltenham Festival Ante-Post preview. We've tried to make it as short as possible. It is definitely the longest oddschecker preview ever. If you've enjoyed watching,
just warming up, like saying, I'm just getting going.
we can just keep. We'll do the handicaps next. We just won't put them out. Do look back to the horses to follow, where both Ed and Andy give us 5 horses each to follow over the National Hunt season. Plenty of the horses they've spoken about today were featured on there. We'll be doing Ed and I will be joined by Andrew Thornton next Wednesday to do a Boxing Day preview as well. So do subscribe to this podcast on all podcast platforms, or do subscribe to the Oddschecker YouTube channel as well. Please do download the Oddschecker app, the very best place for the best prices, bookie offers, free bets, place terms, whatever you want. If you're watching this video or listening to this podcast, it's because you clearly have an interest in racing and in punting, and therefore the Oddschecker app is a must download. Do enjoy the racing, and most importantly, we can't stress enough, please do gamble responsibly.